Welcome to the Spector Creative channel for longtime subscribers, viewers, for first-time people who've just stumbled along this video or are being forced to watch it by angry llamas. This is a channel all about toys, collecting toys, and I'm a collector and a toy maker. And that gives me a toy problem. Well, actually, it has nothing to do with the fact that I worked in the toy industry. This one's just about collecting. And it's about collecting Star Wars toys. I grew up in the 80s. I was born in 1978, 1 year shy of A New Hope coming out, or as it's known to people of that generation, Star Wars. Yes, A New Hope wasn't added for 2.5 years later when Empire was re-released, but that's not important right now. The point is, these were some of my favorite toys growing up. I loved Star Wars toys, and I used to throw my X-Wing across the lawn, and that's why it broke all of its wings, because I actually, played with them as a kid. I grew up to be a collector, and my transition to being a collector in sort of junior high school, I bought a book by Steve Sansweet, and in that book, there is a centerpiece of all 92 Star Wars figures, and I was like, whoa, that's a lot of figures. And I didn't own all of them. It was the first time I'd seen the full collection. It's a big reason why I collect the modern line, is I'm sort of making up for the fact that as a kid, I thought I had all the Star Wars figures, but seeing that book made me realize I didn't. And even the figures I did have, like Jabba the Hutt here with Salacious Crumb on a awesome playset, still got replaced by modern versions, because, hey, I'm all in on the modern line. It definitely spawned from wanting to feel control over my childhood and have the toys I didn't have. Just look at the back room of my office and all of the hundreds and hundreds of small drawers that each contain a modern Star Wars figure with accessories and label. So yes, obsessive compulsive, trying to capture my childhood. What can I say? It's not just about getting Jabba the Hutt, but now getting the perfect Jabba the Hutt surrounded by every single member of his entourage. That's something the modern line lets us do that the vintage line didn't. And being able to have these figures does create a sense of control over this giant universe that was such a big part of opening up my imagination as a child, and being able to get toys that I never could have, such as having every single Rebel pilot. They only made Luke back in the vintage line, and one of the cool things about the modern line is the expanded character selection. Alright, but this isn't a video about the modern line. This is a video about the vintage line. Now, I have some of my vintage figures. That's my Ponda Baba, or Walrus Man, in quotes. I'm doing air quotes here, you can't see that. That's my actual Walrus Man from when I was a kid. Totally scraped up, but I love him. In fact, I have quite a few of my vintage Star Wars figures. Let me see, I'll grab my 3PO case here. I've obviously lost a lot of them. I have my Darth Vader case somewhere too, but I think I put all of the ones I still have in here. And it's kind of embarrassing how few I have now, and I mean how beat up they are. But they're beat up because I played with them. I mean, R2's lost his sticker. Let's see, who else do I have here? Oh, Death Star droid, yeah, like no paint on his eyes anymore. I don't know, there's a layover there. Oh, this guy's lost his legs, probably from an AT-AT or AT-AT attack. Bib Fortuna's looking pretty good. I think he lost his belt and his staff. But yeah, you can see, oh, look at this figure. See on the mark on his shoulder, that red mark? That's nail polish that my mother put on figures so I wouldn't lose them when I went over friends' houses. Alright, so I do have some of my vehicles too, and I'm honestly so glad that I was able to hold on to these for so long. My Millennium Falcon is now proudly on top of my shelf, and my AT-AT is on the bottom of my shelf with Hal Jordan riding on top of him and Howard the Duck controlling him because, reasons. But the point is, a lot of my Star Wars toys are gone. A few of them are on display in my office. I have some of my favorites that I pulled out: Num, Bosk, Greedo, Admiral Akbar, Obi-Wan. There's Jane from Firefly and an alien. I think I just did that to be funny and humorous. But the point is, these figures have been played with. They're scraped, they're loose. Greedo's missing one of his antennae, or whatever those things are called. Ben is missing his vinyl cloak. He's missing his lightsaber. Although, if you notice, the figure actually has the hood sculpted on, which is kind of interesting. Anyway, the point being is that, outside of a couple of the Return of the Jedi figures, mine are in very played-with condition. And I would love to get a complete set, all 92 or 96 or 120, depending on how you do your count. And the idea of getting toys I didn't have, like this Hoth Han I never had, but I acquired him, there's something about owning someone else's toy that doesn't really appeal to me. that Hoth Han, I never had him as a kid, but I have trouble accepting him as part of my collection. And I think a big part of this is all of the memories of playing with Star Wars toys as a kid. And, like I said, I used to throw my X-Wing around, the yard because that's how Luke soared. And, playing with toys. And, bear with me here, but I feel like it puts energy into them. You basically transfer part of your personal energy into the playthings that you love. And, I'm not talking about making the toys come alive. We'll leave that to Hollywood and, Pixar and, all that to find ways to make action figures actually talk and move and, sing and dance. That's imagination. But when you actually engage with toy product through love of those toys, and you're doing it because you want to be doing this, you do, there's an experience there. And Star Wars toys are really tied to my childhood, and holding a toy, picking up a toy, especially one of my actual toys like that Ponda Baba, I can sort of feel the energy that I've put into him over the years and all of the love. It's kind of, well, like one could say the Force, right? That's what Master Yoda would say.
That's not how the Force works.
So I've kind of set forth an impossible task, because if I'm going to complete the 92, let's just call it the 92. Okay, Yak Face 93. Oh wait, there's both droids. Okay, that's how they get to 96. If I'm going to complete the 96, well, my collection is long gone. I mean, I had it at one time. I had a lot more figures than I have now. Probably have maybe 20-30% of what I owned, but I probably only had about 50-60% of the total vintage line as far as figures. Vehicles, that's a whole other story. So getting them back is pretty much impossible. I mean, outside of having a time machine, which I'm working on. But yeah, so I don't have access to my actual toys. So that leaves me with some limited methods of recreating the vintage line. And as I said, the idea of owning someone else's toy, like, buying loose figures at flea markets or conventions, that is, one way to go, and I absolutely respect people who collect that way, and either want just the loose figure, they want it in perfect condition with the accessories, the vinyl cape, etc., etc. That is one way to go. But I feel like doing that, you're buying someone else's childhood. I know, it's kind of weird, but I mean, in an ideal, perfect world, I want my toys back. And I want to be able to go back in time and buy the figures I was missing so that I could have that complete collection. I know that's impossible. I know. I mean, I've, tried to dabble in magic, but it doesn't work. And I don't want to just sort of steal someone else's memories, of having this toy. I mean, not steal. I mean, obviously I'm buying the toy. But that really leaves me with, what options do I have? What can I do? How do I own an original Star Wars line? Well, there's one solution. I could buy vintage figures that have never been opened. Obviously, somebody owned this toy at one point, but they never opened it, they never released the toy, so I kind of consider this, still an unplayed-with figure. So, yeah, I could buy Pop Blue, that's actually Ramba on the card. Weird, I know. And I could crack it open and, destroy a mint-carded figure. It's no longer in mint condition, as comic book guy would say. And I would own the toy, and that would be great. That's one way of doing it. But have you seen the cost and the expense of buying carded, mint on card, or I'd even take ripped cards since I'm opening it? It's not exactly a cheap entrepreneur proposition investment way to go. I mean, when I have a giant pile of money, this might be something that I spend my money on. It would bring me a lot of joy to have original Star Wars figures that have never been played with. Of course, there's also the retro line that Hasbro/Kenner puts out, which is recreations of the vintage figures, which is, it's got its pluses and minuses. They're not perfect recreations. They're more like copies of copies, and the Bespin Luke they put out has blonde hair. My Bespin Luke had brown hair, so, there's those kind of details. I more consider these novelty items, and they're fun, and I like them. But the retro line is also very focused on the new entertainment. There's been 2 waves of Mandalorian figures, and we've only had 1 wave of A New Hope and Empire. We still haven't gotten a Jedi wave. Of Granted, we've gotten some figures that were never released in the original line done as, retro style, like Tarkin, and there was a Snowspeeder Luke, which I think are cool, and are actually, I have this Tarkin on my shelf. He's not even tucked away. I really like him, and that's kind of a cool thing. But if I'm going to collect all 92, or again, 120 if you count the Ewoks and Droids figures and, Blue Snaggletooth and all of that, whatever the goal is, it's without buying loose figures, I'm not sure the way to go. Any suggestions out there? What do you guys do if anyone's putting together a vintage Star Wars line? How are you doing it? What's your personal goal, and what are your methods, restrictions, self-imposed restrictions? I know we're all toy crazy people and we have those. Love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know, and I'll see you guys in the next video.